Oh, say, can you hear?
Yet another red light.
Well, I'm gonna spill all
the secrets you're holding
about the spaceships up there and the aliens down here and all history,
which is totally fake.
Tell us about some of the guest speakers at HUFON.
Well, one of the interesting ones directly connected to some verifiable history is a man named Norman Sykes, and he was a Continental Airlines pilot. But back in 1952, when he was in the Air Force, he was a jet pilot. And in 1952, there was a situation where there was a flock of UFOs that flew over the Capitol building and the White House in Washington, D.C. And this has been actually recorded on some color video or motion picture film and also pictures. This actually happened. And it was a flock, 15 or 20 craft, it looks like. And Norman was one of the two jet pilots that was scrambled out of Dover, Delaware that night to chase these UFOs. And he's got the flight log, his to prove the dates that he did this. And he said they got up, they actually never laid eyes on any objects because they were accelerating away from them so fast they never could catch up with them. And they had the fastest jet available at that time in the early 50s that we had going, and they could not catch up. And he went back to base and basically was told not to talk about this again. But when he came to speak at our group, he brought his logbook with him and some things like that to back up his story. And some things I've read or found out about here recently through some whistleblower testimony is that quite possibly the Nazis had UFO technology as early as the 20s or 30s, and they had craft in their possession, at least one if not two, by the mid-30s, and had developed their own machinery that could do the same thing. And possibly, if not probably, what we saw in Washington, D.C. in 1952 were actually Nazi UFOs as a show of force with the United States. Possibly also having to do with Admiral Byrd's confrontation in the late 40s at the South Pole with apparent UFO-type spacecraft and Nazis and some Nazi submarines, because he went down there with a whole fleet and basically lost a major skirmish, lost a couple of ships and some people against these Nazis and these alien craft. And of course most of that story's been called nonsense, but I believe it actually occurred, and some things are definitely going on there. One of the people that came to our meetings a lot was a commercial airlines pilot, and I actually don't remember whether he was in, I believe it was when he was not in one of the commercial planes, the jets. He was in a private plane, but he was flying basically close to ground, but he was over the ocean in one of the areas. He was on the edge of a cordoned off area that NASA had blocked off for a 48-hour period. And as he was flying in this area, or past the edge of this area, he saw a Apollo capsule being pushed out of a C-130 transport. At least I think it was a C-130. The one that has the big drawer that opens in the bottom. and it pushed down an Apollo capsule, and it went down, the 3 chutes open, and he watched it land in the ocean. And that was the day of the Apollo landing. I mean, the Apollo returned to Earth. And so why a capsule was being pushed out of the back of an airplane, he doesn't know. And he mentioned that to somebody officially, and they told him, you know, you don't ever mention that again, or you'll end up losing your job with your airlines, even if you weren't on one of their flights at the time, just by mentioning this happening. So he kept his mouth shut. We had Dr. Richard Sauter come in. He wrote a book and compiled some information on underground bases. And what got him interested, he can't remember exactly, like he got up in the middle of the night to let the cat out, and decided to sit there and smoke a cigarette before he let the cat back in and went back to bed. And while he was sitting smoking a cigarette, wide awake, heard a voice inside his head say, "The underground bases are real. You're looking in the right direction. Keep digging." And he realized he was wide awake, and he went and let the cat back in, and realized that somehow somebody was actually speaking to him. And so he started doing research to find out what kind of technology could have done that, and he found that there actually is research and equipment that they've had since the 70s. There are patents out there you can look up where they can beam voice. Some of it is called voice of God technology, and it has the ability, they can point this technology at a crowd of people, and each one of the people in the crowd will hear the voice from the deity of their choice or their loved one of choice. And somehow this has the ability to get inside your head, find out who these people are, and have that voice come to you. And if they're going to fake some sort of alien invasion in the future, this is one of the things that will definitely come into play. There's also some 3D holographic laser technology that is patented and can project out in broad daylight a complete 3D image as big as Godzilla. And as a matter of fact, one of the demonstrations was done with Godzilla. And it looks real, and it can be done in broad daylight. So if they want to stage an invasion, it's not going to be very difficult. They can have a projector mounted in some sort of stealth aircraft that we cannot see and point it kind of like out some sort of port in the plane, and it will broadcast an image of a UFO or a spacecraft or whatever they want from an aerial platform that cannot be seen. And this is technology we have today, and these patents are all available, and you can look them up, and they are public information at this point. And so make sure you get in the right line. Don't get into the right spacecraft, because we don't know whether this is actually real or not. It could actually be our own government. Maybe it's even not our government. Maybe even it's a group that's above all governments. But someone is perpetrating this, and someone is keeping governments from bringing their information forward and allowing them to releasing their information to tell us what's actually going on. It really has more to do with technology than it does with aliens themselves. They're not so much worried about how it's going to affect us with aliens, but some of the technology they have, some of the powers like telepathy that they have. I mean, if we were exposed to to telepathy, and were able to learn that on a worldwide scale, there would be no secrets. There'd be no combination locks. There would be no way to keep anything secret from anybody. And the powers that be that are pulling the strings, that are running the show right now, don't want to give up that power. Information is power. Secrecy is power. If that's all gone, they don't have any more control, because everyone knows exactly what they know. They do not want this.
Say, can you finally
Start telling us the truth.
Protect our civil liberties.